Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of 50 Shades and Grey. We're with me today. I have the cook, Theo Michaels. Welcome, Theo. Thank you for coming on and joining me.
No, chuffed to be here, to be honest.
It's lovely to have you. So myself and Theo only met last weekend, and now we're best friends. I mean, he doesn't know that yet. I'm going to start stalking him very soon. But we met last weekend at a charity event for the Essex and Herts Ambulance, which is a great event. And I know Theo's been involved with them for a while. Is that right, Theo?
Yeah, so a good friend of mine, Linda, actually, she introduced me to them. And we spent a day a few months back. I took the kids over to one of their sort of locations, and we saw the chopper, and they went for everything they did. And it just blew me away, to be honest. Because I don't know, some of the listeners might know this already. But these sort of air ambulances that you see that sort of parachute in, save lives, are totally independent. There's no funding by the government for them. And in my head, I found that really hard to get my head around because I just sort of presumed it was part of the ambulance service that you see on the roads. But they're totally independent, and they're trying to do their thing, and it costs them. I mean, what was the quote? I think it was £1 million a month. It cost them to run all these choppers.
It was a staggering. Yeah, a staggering amount, actually, because I was the same as you. I just thought it was part of the NHS service. And when I found this out, and they were, I was like, I couldn't believe it. But yeah, it's like £1 million a month.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And so they do various fundraising things. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say it or not, but I'm going to be doing a fundraising thing with them later this year, I think it is. That's basically going to involve me dressing up in a lot of spandex and glitter and doing some dancing, which I'm not overly comfortable with, if I'm honest, but we're going to give it a go nonetheless. So it's their version of Strictly Come Dancing, I think. And again, I blame Linda for this, my friend who works there, who's collared me into doing it. But I don't think anyone realises that I can't bloody dance. Like, I can't dance
You
at
just
all.
want to wear
So
spandex.
I'm not really sure how this is. Well, it's my usual Friday night attire, so I thought we'd bring it out to the weekend.
Well, me and Zach went last year, actually, and it's a really great event, actually, and it's held locally here. So, it was last year. It was up at the Brentwood Centre here. So, hopefully, if it's there again, I'll come up and cheer you on, buddy.
Oh, well, I hope so. I'm going to need some moral support for this one, I think, to get through it.
Oh, so what I wanted to chat to you about, something that was of real interest to me last week, is on the show. We talk about a lot of midlife stuff that I think everyone can relate to because we're all going to get to that stage eventually. I didn't realise, like, your story, you literally changed your careers midlife to a career that you never done before.
Yeah, so I guess I followed in my dad's footsteps really for most of my sort of like very corporate. Like capitalist, when I was 11, I remember starting a little car wash round and collecting money, and I ended up employing one of my mates to wash the cars. Then I'd follow him around and collect the cash. And so it was very much like capitalist environment. So I ran an IT and engineering recruitment business that I started for 7 years, and I sold it, and then ran another recruitment business, part of a bigger company, and sat on the board for another 7 years. But do you know what, Elliot? I just got to a point where I really disliked going into the office. Like I don't know if it was like 15 years of doing it or what it was. It was great money, but it's, especially in recruitment, it's very much rinse and repeat. At the end of the month, you wipe down this board and you put zeros down the right hand column and you start again, and it's just, you do that forever. And so it was great cash, but I just fell out of love with it. And I just thought, God, I've got another 30 years of working probably. I need to do something I love. I need to do something I'm passionate about. And that was probably the biggest catalyst for wanting to move. Because I think it's one of the things in recruitment is we used to have a lot of these conversations where people would say, like, get me a new job. I don't like what I'm doing. I don't want to do the job I'm doing. Get me something else. And so we'd say, okay, well, what would you like? What's the job you want to get? And they go, well, that's the problem. I don't know. I don't know what my passion is. I don't know what I want to go into. So I felt really, really lucky that I suddenly had this passion for food, and I knew I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that was the arena that I wanted to play in. So I thought, all right, let's just go for it.
So was you always into cooking and generally, or was that something that evolved over time?
No, I mean, so my background's Greek Cypriot, right? So we live around the kitchen and the kitchen table, and it's always to do with food. And my mum's an amazing cook. My dad's a great cook, and I've always enjoyed cooking. I think it was probably being at university and not having enough money to take girls on dates. I thought I need to learn to cook so I can take them on a date at home instead. I've always been into cooking, and then long story short, we got back off holiday, and I was like, fucking hell, I've got to go back into the office tomorrow. I'm not looking forward to that. And a little application form popped up on the iPad for MasterChef. And so I went, do you know what? I've filled it out, sent it off, didn't think anything of it. And then months, like literally 3 to 4 months later, I'm at the office. It was sort of very corporate. And this phone call comes in, and one of the guys go, "Oh, Theo, it's for you." So I went, so I picked it up, I went, "Hello, Theo." And he went, "Oh, it's MasterChef." And you know that thing that kids do when they're young and they want to go to the toilet and they sort of jump, they do a little dance while they hold on to their crutch. Right? So I'm that excited. So I'm standing there like, oh my God. So I run to like a different room and we have this conversation, and the process for it is very much like, "Hey, it's MasterChef here. I heard you've applied. Tell us about yourself." So you go blah, 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 chit chat. And they go, "That's great. If you're through to the next round, the next stage, we'll get back in touch. And if you're not, you're never going to hear from us." You're like, oh, like, that's really hard to deal with, right? Because so you sort of put the phone down and think, well, I don't know. There's no conclusion to this conversation. And so then we carried on, and then like a month later, another phone call comes into the office. I pick it up, I do the little child need and a wee dance, run to the other room, and you go through this sort of 4 or 5 times maybe, and then eventually they go, "I'll tell you what, come into the studio, and we're going to test you out." And so what they do is you go in and you cook a dish, and while you're cooking it, they're asking you loads of questions. And I think the idea is, can you do 2 things at once? Which for all the women out there listening or watching the podcast, it turns out blokes can do more than one thing at the same time. And so they went,
well, one can.
One can, and to be honest, it was a fleeting moment. I can't anymore. It's honestly, if I'm on the phone and my missus is like, "Do you want tea?" I have this breakdown where I sort of have to put the phone down. Like, what is it? Like tea? Like, I'll have a cup of tea, and then I have to call back. I can't do 2 things at once. And so then, and that was it. And I got onto the show, and then I did pretty good on it. And then and I think it was during the course of that, you just get so absorbed into this like MasterChef world. And, you know, we're sitting there in board meetings talking about our 5-year strategy of spending 6 million on a data center. And in my head, I'm thinking lemon meringue with thyme maybe. And I knew at that point, I need to go. I need to get out. And so that was it. So I handed in my notice to the chairman, who isn't into foods. He's an old school bloke, and he was like, "Well, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, I'm quitting, Richard. I'm gonna sell my equity, and I'm gonna go into food." And he just was like, "Hold on, run that by me again. What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go into food," and he just couldn't get it. And so it took me, I think, 4 times. So he basically was like, "I'm not having your notice, take it back." And he sent me out of the office. And so I handed in my notice about 3 to 4 times. And eventually I was like, "Look, I'm definitely going. And I'm out. You just take it." And that was it. And I sort of spoke to my wife, you know, we've got kids, mortgage, all that. So it's not, I think when you're younger, right, and you've got none of those anchors of life, there's a lot more freedom to chop and change and do stuff. But, you know, you get older, you've got a mortgage, you get kids, there's responsibilities there. And that makes it harder. So my wife was very much like, "I don't know what sort of random midlife crisis you're going through. And you could have bought a motorbike. You could have slept with a secretary." I was like, "I don't think Dave the secretary's up for it, by the way. But, you know, do something else." And so she gave me a year. She was like, "You got 1 year to sort this out. And if not, you need to go back into recruitment because we need to, you know, make a living." And so I just sort of dived in. I just dived in head first. And I think in my head, I just thought to myself, "Do you know what? Like, the worst case that happens is I go back into recruitment. I've had a go. start again.
Things in that really resonated with me, actually, being lucky enough to have the support of someone that just goes, go and do it. I mean, that must be great. So you've obviously got a great relationship with your wife and that trust, and that must be fantastic to have. But the second is I think it was a really good expression that you said about having anchors in life that probably, and that was what I was interested in as well, was at the time, your circumstances of you've got all these pressures of a mortgage, you've got kids and you're supporting a family. So that must have been like that. I think that's probably what holds a lot of people back, because that's a big gamble to take, isn't it?
Yeah, it's massive. And, and it frustrates me a bit because you see a lot of stuff on social media and a lot of things where I think people are like, yeah, just go do this thing, right? Just go do it, live your life, da da da. But the reality is, it's like, well, do you know what? That's not feasible for everyone, because if you're living paycheck to paycheck, it's really hard to do those things. And so I do think it's difficult, and it's not been easy, for sure. It hasn't been easy, and I've questioned the decision many times over the years. But I think there's a middle ground where, like, I've always, so the context is, I've always ran my own businesses straight out of university. Me and my brothers, we launched a business called Co Buy With Me, which was it's like an online dating platform, except for people that wanted to buy a house together, right? And that had never been done anywhere in the world. And so we launched it in America, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the UK. But again, at the time, we were all working. So I was finishing work. And then from like 9 o'clock at night, I was trying to do bits on the business. My brother was working in like finance. And then he would finish work at 9 o'clock at night. He would do bits. So it can be a real slog to make the transition. But if I'm brutally honest, I think also it's partly, I live in a rose-tinted world, man. Like, I'm always, the glass is half full. Everything's going to be okay. I'm naturally optimistic about stuff. And I think if you combine really high optimism with zero pride, right, you get this really great match where it's like, just fucking go for it. And you know what? If it all goes tits up, get a job. I can get a job in tech. That was the thing for me, is I knew whatever happened, I'd make money. So I was like, if it doesn't work, I'll get. If I have to work in Tesco's on a checkout until I get another job, like, I'll do that, and I'm not going to be proud about it. Like, I'll do whatever it. If I have to help a mate carrying bricks on a building site for a bit, I'll do that until I get back on my feet. And so I think that gave me a bit of a mental safety net, that I thought, if it doesn't work, I'm not going to sit around. I'll do whatever it takes to get earning again. And I think I've always lived a bit like that, to be honest. I've always taken the punt and the gamble, which means you have a really adventurous life with no money.
That's exactly where I am still. But I think you're right, and I'm very much the same. I've got to the stage where I think, well, there's a high probability that this is all going to go wrong, but it'll be a great adventure until it goes wrong. And once it goes wrong, I'll see if I can fix it. If I can't, we'll look and try and do something else. So the MasterChef thing, how long ago was that?
10 years now.
When you came out of that show, then what happened after that? Did it all just sort of fall into place, or was it quite hard work after that?
No, that was the hardest bit, I think. So what happens is you do MasterChef or anything like that, and you get this instant fame, right? So, I mean, I remember I'd be walking down the street and cars would turn around and come back and be like, "Oh my God, man, we watched you last night. You were awesome, blah, blah, blah." And no matter what people say, that's a buzz, right? Like, people can go like, "Oh, I don't like fame, da 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 da." Utter bollocks. It's amazing. I love it. I know I'm a little bit needy and I'm quite vain anyway. So for me, it's just like a dream. Like, oh yeah, I love being the centre of attention. This is great. But you get this massive high. And if you win MasterChef, you get this sort of like this runway for a year. So it's like, right, PR company is on your side. You've got your book deal. You've got your interview. So there's this platform set up for you. I didn't win MasterChef, right? So what happens is, it's like, great shot, mate, but no cigar. So thanks very much. And so then you're in this position where you're like, oh, I've tasted a bit of the fame, which, hands up, love, got this newfound passion. So basically, so the deal is, so the people that win, they have this runway, and the people that don't, it's like, right, off you go. And so a lot of people just go back into their work, whatever. But for me, I was like, no, I want to do something with this. So my background is sort of sales anyway. So I just fell in. I think because I've always worked for myself, I never expected anything to be easy. So I just went, right, if I want to do something with this, I have to do it myself. So I remember phoning, getting lists of every food production, TV production company in the country, and I'd just phone them. Again, no pride, right? Take away pride from the equation, and it gives you a sense of freedom because you don't mind making a dick of yourself. That's the thing. And I was like, I'm okay with that. So I'd phone up every single food production company in the UK, and I was like, I'm Theo, you know, I love being on telly, I love cooking, like, I just want to be on your radar, and so I was doing that, but then at the same time, and what a lot of people do is they fall into the private chef world after MasterChef because it's easy to access. It's like, it's like you, Elliot. You go, I'm having people round, come round and cook for me, Theo, make me a beautiful dinner. It's like, I can do that. So I did that for a few years, and then we opened a pop-up restaurant. And again, it's one of those things, like, there's this habit of just sort of saying yes to stuff and then thinking, bloody hell, how are we going to do that? And so the pop-up restaurant, I remember I was sitting there, we'd finished MasterChef, started to do a couple of like private dining things, and we were on holiday, and I remember sitting there on the beach, and I was like, do you know what, Anna? That's my missus. I was like, I'm going to do a pop-up restaurant. I'm going to do 40 people. I'm going to do an 8-course Greek-inspired taster menu. I'm going to do it at the local deli that we'll go into in the evening. And so utter stupidity and naivety, basically, right? So I'm sitting there with this grand idea. And so then I go on Facebook. Pardon me, and I'm like, I'm going to post it on the Facebook group for the local area. And in my head, I thought no one's going to go. And I posted it, like, dropped the phone away, carried on mucking about with the kids. And then suddenly the phone exploded, and it was like, oh, booking. And we had like 40 people booked who were like, can't wait to taste this 8-course taster menu. And I was like, fucking hell, I've got no idea what we're doing. I don't know how to do this. And so I was in this panic for like 2 months of like, oh my God, what have I done? Like, I don't know how to do a bloody, like, a pop-up restaurant. I don't know how to cook for that many people. And so, and that's partly the philosophy. It's like, say yes, throw yourself into it. You know you're going to screw it up, and that's okay, right? Because, I don't know, look at an amazing Olympian. Their first race, they didn't win, right? You know what I mean? Like, an amazing boxer, their very first day in the training ring, they didn't win. Michelangelo, I'm sure the first time he put a brush to paper, it wasn't the Sistine Chapel that came out from the other end. So it's like, do you know what? You're going to screw up, and embrace that. That's cool. And it just went from there, really. And so a combination, of no pride, too much optimism and naivety was the recipe to just dive in. Just dive in, do something. And that's what I think frustrates me with a lot of stuff, is people procrastinate too much on stuff. It's like, if you decided to do it, just do it. Don't make it perfect. It won't be perfect. Just do it. Screw it up. Do it again. See if you get better. See if you can make a living. And if you can't, make sure you've got a safety net, or you've got enough, not confidence, but you're comfortable enough to go, do you know what? If it goes wrong, I'm not going to bury my head in shame on this. I've had a go. I'll do something else.
I think there's definitely a resilience as well. I mean, and I find with people that I sort of get on with, I get on better with people, like friendships, relationships, that will tell you 3 reasons or 1 reason why you should do something, as opposed to those people that will give you 3 reasons why you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, the thing is that there's a million reasons not to do any of it. Like, the reality for me, it was,
yeah, exactly.
You're mid-30s, you're running a recruitment business, you're sitting on the board of a public listed company. Like, from a corporate perspective, it was like you're earning big money, like, why are you going to fuck that all up and stand there in someone's kitchen cooking dinner? Like, you're off your head. There's no reason, there's no logical reason for it. But I knew in terms of like fulfillment, like I've got loads of friends who earn a load more money than me, and then they're not happy, right? They don't enjoy the
Yeah.
jobs they do. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a firm believer that money does buy you happiness. Like people that are like, oh, money doesn't buy you happiness, I think that's bollocks. It does. It makes life easier for sure. But I just thought, like, yeah, man, I've got 30 years, and do I stick with doing something? Because my career was very transactional. It was, I'm going to give you my time and my soul, and I'm going to work every hour you give me, and you're going to give me a bunch of cash for that, and I've got no fulfillment. Like, I'm just helping a contractor get another job, doing what he's always done, and we're going to take our cut. And I just was like, no, I need something to fulfill a bit of a passion, really. And so
Yeah,
that's the thing.
I think
if you got to go for it.
I think we like sort of. I know when I grew up, there was always a rush to sort of get as many anchors around you as you said earlier, as quickly as possible, because that's what you was meant to do. And I've been very aware of that with Zach growing up. So he's just finished university this year, and now he's looking around what to do. And I've sort of said to him, Zach, if you sit on the couch for 2 years and don't do a thing, and which he's not that kind of lad, but I said, theoretically, if you did that, when you stood up, you'd only be 24. I said, so you've still got another, God knows how many years of working. I was like, don't be in a rush to do anything. Just do loads of different things. Because like you say, the more stuff that as soon as you get mortgages, responsibilities, and then you fall into like all these other anchors, it makes it so difficult, that decision to then try to do something else.
This is it, because you've committed to a path on that. And so no, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I met Zach, and I think there's comfort probably from your side because he's a good lad. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's one of those guys that, whatever he decides, he's going to be all right. And I think there's probably comfort from a father's perspective on that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've said the same to my kids, Elliot. I was like, look, if you go to uni, great. If you decide uni isn't for you, that's cool. Like, I'm not bothered whether you go or you don't. But I was like, you have to go travelling. I was like, it's a mandatory requirement. I want you at some point to save some money, stick a backpack on, and just disappear, right? Just disappear somewhere in the world for 6 months, a year, 3 months, whatever you can afford, and just see the world, see a new way, see different cultures, new philosophies, it's one of the things that always, it might be a bit weird, I reckon, but it's one of those things that always plays on my mind is people living these other lives. So it's like me and you now, right? We're in the UK, we're chatting on the podcast, and in my head I'm like, man, there's a geezer in the Brazilian jungle right now, a tribesman doing his thing. Or there's a guy on a ranch in Texas wrangling cattle. It's like there's like a billion different lives that you can live. And when you're younger, you've got the choice of all of those. Like, you can do that. You go, I'm going to go to the States and I want to be a cowboy, and I think if I would have done that, I would have got laid a lot more in my 20s. Or, I want to live in the tribe in the jungle. Fine, like, do it. So I think you're right. I think that, especially the younger years, you got to just embrace life. I mean, it's an adventure. That's the thing for me. I just see life as one big adventure, and it's trying to get this balance of being responsible, but also not forgetting it's an adventure. Living life to the max, and there's always a trade-off. You can't live every day like it's your last, because you'd be broke and dead within a week.
I think there is a balance, isn't there, to it? And I think a lot of the stuff that you said from MasterChef, I've sort of experienced, or I'm experienced now, from coming out of the show that we did. But I think the biggest thing for me was experiencing something different for the first time. And I think that's, what's led me into sort of doing other things as well now. This podcast, for instance, and, it's hard work trying to do it and sort of trying to promote it, and, hopefully it does well. And all you can do is have a go, because if it fails, you kind of think, well, at least I had a go at it. And there are a lot of people that go, oh, you stupid.
But I think that's amazing from your side to go from Because you mentioned you were a teacher before. Are you still teaching or no?
So yeah, still teaching. So on summer holidays now, thank God. I love working with kids. I love that bit. Teaching has become, like most jobs now, it's a lot more paperwork driven. There's so many other
Yeah.
constricting things that are around the job now. So it has changed a lot, but I still love it. I love the school where I am. The people that I work for are great, and the people that I work with are great. So, but it was just doing something different. That's all it was. And that was my main drive to sort of do the show that we did anyway. And also doing it with Zach was the other thing. I had a taste of sort of like TV, and I loved it. I thought it was like, and it wasn't so much the fame thing, like, because I don't think it's not real, is it? You're not like doing anything
No.
major. Like for you, you were actually cooking. At least you had a talent. I was just literally doing what I did at most weekends anyway. So it was just sort of people recognising it. And that was quite nice, but that wasn't really a drive for me anyway. It was more just, I think, yeah, just doing something different. That was that. And I liked sort of that part of just chatting to people and being spontaneous, and that part for me was great. Yeah, definitely.
That's the thing, I think. I mean, it's incredible, isn't it, to have the experience you've had, and then you're doing the podcast and all the, and that's the thing with any business, any project, they're never overnight. It takes like years of
No,
like pummeling away, and then it gets traction, and to be doing something that you obviously really enjoy, branching out into new areas. For me, that's the epitome of the adventure of life. It's like that's what it's about, isn't it? Like having a sample of all those things, and I think that's incredible. But like I know there's so many people they're desperate to do more and they don't know what that passion is, and so sometimes I think maybe it's a case of like just trying stuff and seeing what turns you on. Like you don't know.
yeah, you've got to get, yeah, definitely got to get a kick out of something. Before we go, because I've loved chatting to you, and we could do, hopefully get together and do this again. But I do want to ask you a few cooking questions, purely selfish driven,
Yes.
because I do like cooking. So, and they're really simple questions that most people are going to look and go, "You're a complete idiot." I don't care, because I just want a few cooking tips. I want some advice on chopping vegetables, everything.
Chopping.
Because I'm not one of those people. You know, like when you watch a film and you see someone go, "I think that looks great. That looks like you know what you're doing." I'm like, so are there any tips
chopping,
on chopping?
Okay, so number one, sharp knife. Like you got to make sure the knife is razor sharp. You need a sharp knife. Number two, what you're chopping on. So you need not a good chopping board, but you need like wood. Really, you could use plastic, but like I've seen people with like a glass chopping board and stuff like that. It's like that's not good. Like things slip around, your knife goes blunt. So you need a sharp knife and you need the right knife. So if you're chopping stuff, a little paring knife like this, it is not going to work. You need like a chef's knife. So get yourself a sharp chef's knife, a good wooden or plastic chopping board. Basically, the sort of the Asian sort of Eastern method is more like up, down, up, down, up, down. And then the French method with a chef's knife is more like a rocking motion where the tip doesn't really leave the chopping board.
So I need a big chopper. That's the story of my life.
You need a big chopper. I don't want to say I've heard the rumours, Elliot.
I don't know rumours. Garlic is another thing that I've seen. Like, so I've seen some people smash it and just throw it in. Other people peel it and chop it up. Does that depend on what you're cooking and how much sort of taste of the garlic you want, or is there just generally a best way to do garlic?
So how you chop or cut the garlic will affect how it tastes and the flavour you get. And basically, without getting too geeky on it, it's all about surface area, right? So if you get a big bulb of garlic and you give it a crack and throw it into a dish, that's probably like the smallest surface area you're going to get on that garlic. It's just the outside of it. And you've cracked it a bit, so it's going to help a little bit of the flavour come out, but it'll be super mild. And then if you're like having like a gambus pill or a dish like that where you've got big slithers of garlic, again, there's a bit more surface area now because you think each slice of garlic, you've got all the outside and you've got multiple slices, and so you'll get a bit more flavour from it. And also, if you cook garlic like that, it will go quite sweet. Like raw garlic is actually quite sharp, it's quite hot, it's really pungent. And when you cook garlic, it gets more mellow and softer and sweeter. And so thicker slices of garlic are great for tomato sauces, stuff like that, because you'll get more flavour of the garlic in there, but it won't be overpowering, and it will start to go a bit sweet. And then you've got chopping garlic. Well, now if you imagine you've got loads of little bits of garlic, you've got a much larger surface area. Like there's more of the garlic is exposed, if you like. So you'll get a lot more flavour, and that will permeate more of the dish. And then if you crush garlic, so it's a paste, that every mouthful you get in that dish will have the same level of garlic running through it. So basically that's the sort of deal, is the more garlic flavour you want, break it down more. The less garlic flavour you want, keep it bigger or whole. If you cook garlic through, it will give you a lovely sweetness to the dish as well.
So my last question, because cooking garlic as well, is an oil.
But you hoping the garlic one, you're going to be like, Theo just said chop it small. And he's done like a 15-minute conversation.
No, because I used to always chop it. And then I saw someone smashing it and said, oh, no, that's the best way to do it. Or at least I think that's what they said. And then I sort of, that's tend to what I do now, but that makes more sense to me, like the bigger surface area. And because I always used to just cook with extra virgin oil or virgin oil, and then I was reading something about oils at different temperatures, and if you're using extra virgin oil, you should only put it in at the last minute.
Yeah, so I think the deal with that is, so that's always been the narrative, has been the smoking point of oil. So like vegetable oil, rapeseed oil, etc., has a high burning point, so it's good to fry stuff in. And extra virgin olive oil has a low burning point, so you shouldn't use it. So there's a couple of things. Number one, like being Greek Cypriot, we use extra virgin olive oil for everything. We use it for dressings, frying, cooking a lot. The only time I'd probably use vegetable oil is if we're deep frying something, and for two reasons. One, it's a lot cheaper, right? So if we're going to use a whole thing of vegetable oil, that might cost me £3 for a litre. For extra virgin olive oil, that would cost me 15 quid. So it's cheaper to use it for that. And there's no flavour. You're not trying to get any flavour from that oil. If you're cooking chips or deep frying chicken wings or something like that, you're not looking for the oil to give it any flavour. You just want to cook it and crisp it up. But equally, I think the deal is with extra virgin olive oil especially, the first time you use it, you don't get really much degradation in terms of how hot it is. It's only if you reuse it again and again and again. So my take on it is you can use olive oil pretty much for everything. It's cheaper to use vegetable oil if you're doing things in like bulk, so deep frying chips or stuff like that. But actually we use extra virgin olive oil for pretty much all cooking except deep frying.
And do you just use it on sort of a lower heat slightly?
No, I just use it however I need it. And that's actually one of the things you notice, actually, is that a lot of home cooks, they cook things at a much lower temperature than we do in the commercial kitchens. Commercial kitchens, we seem to cook things a much higher temperature. So if we're cooking, most stuff just seems to be at a higher temperature. It's cooking quicker. It doesn't dry stuff out. It gives another flavour. Like if you do fried eggs in olive oil, it just reminds me of being in Cyprus. Like you get that flavour of extra virgin olive oil with the eggs and stuff. It doesn't taste as like greasy as like vegetable oil. So yeah, we use it all the time. Go with it. Do your body a favour. Stick with the olive oil.
Those three things are going to really help me out. Because me and Zach do loads of cooking
I'm looking
out.
forward to seeing it.
Well, we'll have to do that. We'll do one of these, and we'll do some cooking together because that would be great.
There we go. We get together. We'll do a podcast in the kitchen while we're cooking. Yeah.
Thank you for joining 50 Shades of Grey. Thank you for watching, everyone. Subscribe below, and we'll catch you again soon. But once again, thank you to Theo Michaels. Check him out. I'll put all of his links and everything on the bottom of these. Okay, but take care. Enjoy yourself. Have a good week. Bye-bye.